Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront updates. In the new game mode Turning Point that is available in the free Battle of Jakku DLC, there is one big thing that sets it apart from the other big game modes in Battlefront, and that is the fact that the rebels have airspeeders, but that is the only aircrafts available, meaning that the Empire doesn't have any TIE fighters or interceptors to counter them with. The only thing they have is the ATST's rockets and the ion torpedoes. This makes the airspeeders extremely powerful, and I wanted to share some really good tips and tricks with you guys that I recently learned from a good friend of mine. I can honestly admit that I'm pretty bad at flying generally speaking, and I usually get shot down or crash way too early, but after I combined these tips together with the fact that there are no enemy fighters in this game mode, I was able to absolutely destroy the enemy team and pretty much end up on the top of the scoreboard every single game. First off, let me explain for those of you who didn't know. The airspeeder actually have a bigger splash radius on its blaster compared to the other fighters, which makes it the best anti-infantry ship in the game. But it does however lack firepower against other fighters and vehicles, which is why this game mode is perfect for it. On to the actual tips now. Something I didn't really think about at first is that you need to get quite far away from the enemy to have as effective strafe runs as possible. But the problem with the airspeeder is that it levels out automatically, so you can't fly it straight into the ground like with the other fighters, but you have to come from a pretty moderate angle, which I struggled with at first, but after a while I learned that the best thing you can do is to fly to the maximum altitude and then fly almost all the way to the edge of the map. This gives you a very good strafe run length, and it also means that you can actually aim down on the enemies, which is something that you can't do if you're straight above them. This brings me to the next point of the strafe runs. You should always do them from behind the enemy lines in Turning Point, like you can see that I do in this video. This is good for multiple reasons. First off, it simply means that less people will actually see you coming and shoot at you, which means that you will survive for longer. It also means that you will be able to take out those enemies trying to defend or reach the capture points a lot easier, as you can kill those hiding behind cover as well. And this is also why the airspeeders are so good for playing the objective. They won't just get you a lot of kills, but they will also help out your team a lot by clearing out the imperials protecting the capture points. This can be specifically good at the last capture point since there's only one active, and you pretty much know where the enemies will be, so you can shoot them very early. When you do the actual strafe runs, one tip I learned is that if you switch to the cockpit view, you will actually see the enemies a little bit earlier, as that is one of the problems with the strafe runs, actually spotting the enemy infantry. Another thing that can help this out is by going into the settings and maxing out the mesh quality if it isn't already set on ultra. To make sure that you can actually survive strafe run after strafe run, you need to use your jammer all the time. This ability has a very low cooldown and removes all lock-ons from missiles, making you a pretty much unkillable enemy for the infantry. As soon as you see enemy locking on, simply activate it and you will be fine. Sometimes it can actually be good to pop the jammer the last second of the strafe run when you're close to the ground, because if someone fires a missile that close to you, it's gonna be pretty hard to actually have time to react and activate the jammer, and the missile will most likely hit you. Another huge tip I have for you is that you should not shoot the ATSTs. You do barely any damage at all, and if you attack the ATST, chances are pretty high that he will turn around and start shooting at you, which can be very annoying. You can of course counter his rockets with the jammer, but the normal ATST blaster actually does a lot of damage, so there's really no point for you to attack the ATST. Focus on clearing the capture points from Imperial infantry instead. As you might see from the gameplay, it can be very hard to spot the enemies at the start of your strafe run, especially when you're at the max altitude. The best thing to do at this point is simply shoot at the spots where you know the enemies often are, like at the capture points, and if you're lucky you'll also have some dumb enemies who start shooting at you, and the blaster trails will reveal where they are, so that you can easily take them out. Anyways, that's all the tips I have for the airspeeder in Turning Point. A lot of these tips are of course applicable for other game modes with the airspeeders, but they work the best in Turning Point since there's no enemy fighters. Hopefully you'll be able to destroy the enemy team with these tips. Let me know in the comments below if you've used the airspeeder yourself. I will see you guys soon again, and as always, may the force be with you.